All right, hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Dive with the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, or RICI for short. I'm your host, Maria Friedman, Executive Director of RICI, and this podcast is a bold exploration of the issues shaping America, Israel, Rhode Island, and the future of Western civilization. We aim to bring clarity to complex topics so that you, our viewers, have the knowledge and confidence to engage in informed discussions. We're also leading candid discussions that challenge false narratives and provide historical, moral, and strategic context. Deep Dive delivers news and views designed to turn the tide in Rhode Island and beyond. So, with that, I'm very, very pleased to welcome our special guest, Danny Schwartz, who is the co-founder of the Chicago Jewish Alliance and also the newly created American Jewish Alliance. So, welcome, Danny.
Thank you so much for having me. I've never heard the prelogue for this podcast, and I think it's very important. So I love the ethos. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to talk with you more. It's been a pleasure working with you so far, but tell us a little bit about who you are, your background. How did you get to co-found such amazing organizations, and what's your path been like?
Yeah, so I know we hear the term a lot, October 8th Jew. Um, and I am in the sense of my advocacy mission, being an October 8th Jew. But I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and my Jewry was always not religiously important to me, but culturally very important to me. On both sides, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. On my dad's side, my grandpa was part of the Kinder transport, where England actually purchased some Jewish children from Austria and Germany. And so my grandpa was Austrian, and so he was saved through that process. And then on my mom's side, my grandparents were part of the Belsky Brigade, which were Jews that kind of ran into the forest and started a militia and literally fought back to, Polish Nazis, German Nazis. And so I always felt this ancestral connection to my Jewry and culturally very Jewish. But it wasn't until October 7th where I had this almost like a reactivation, this self-actualization moment of who I am and how I fit in the diaspora as a Jew. My background was Judaism was a part of it, but it was never central
Mhm.
um, until October 7th. And then regarding the actual nonprofit, how it was started, it really was started because out of a necessity. Um, in Chicago, like many municipalities, they started to do these resolutions for Gaza. I don't know if you remember that.
Mhm.
Was there anything like that in Rhode Island?
Yeah,
Did
there
they?
have been some like the Providence City Council passed one shortly after October 7th, denouncing ethnic cleansing, and we knew exactly what they were talking about. So we have a similar
Right.
similar vibe here.
Yeah. So I think that was really sobering when it was like on our doorstep, this Jew hatred. And that's like just what we'll call it. It was it was so bizarre for me to hear that in our own city in Chicago, where we have so many issues, and I'm sure you hear a lot in the news, not just the crime, but like financially, we just have we're broke like by July in Chicago. Like we can,
Ooh,
so
yikes.
to, yeah, so to see this like virtue signaling for Gaza, it seemed even more like it wasn't just a distraction. It really like hit home. It was like targeting Jewish people in Chicago. So basically what happened was is I created a WhatsApp group after October 7th, like a cathartic place for Jews to talk to. And when we heard about this resolution happening in Chicago, I put an APB out. I was like, guys, let's show up. Let's go protest. And I showed up and it was at City Hall and it was me, a couple Jews, and 1,000 pro jihadist protesters screaming racial epithets at us. And that day when we left, I filed the articles to start the Chicago Jewish Alliance with the idea that we're not going to let this happen in our own community. So that's the
Wow.
spiel. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I just want to say, I also relate to kind of your personal story with your family being resistance fighters, like fleeing the Nazis, because my grandmother, who I'm named after on my dad's side, was part of the Partisans, which is a similar group that was in Belarus. So the Jews that fled, into the
Wait,
forest,
that's where my
formed the
grandparents
resistance.
were.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
In the
maybe our
Belsky Brigade?
grandparents. I don't know if it's Belsky Brigade or which group. I think I don't know if that's different from the Partisans.
No, it's the
But
same. It's the same and
okay,
it's the
so
same
maybe they
location.
they knew each other then.
Wow.
So I just want to say I just have a personal relation with that, and I also felt activated after October 7th, and I really wasn't before. I mean, I had gone to Israel on birthright and things like that, but I really started to wake up and realize that we do have to fight, for our right to safety and self-determine in our ancestral indigenous homeland, which is Israel. And I wish that somebody like gave me that education when I was growing up, but at least now I'm more educated and more alert to what's going on, and obviously you are too, and you're not just alert, but you're leading a whole movement behind it. So you kind of already answered what called you to do this work, but can you tell us more about like the landscape, the issues that you're facing, and the impact that you've had in Chicago? Because I'd like to talk shop and kind of compare and contrast what's going on with you and also here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I think it's very, very similar, and we're seeing it across the country with Jewish advocacy is after October 7th, we saw that there still are federal and state agencies that are helping the Jewish cause. Like whether we agree with them fully politically or not, there's the ADL, there's the JU, I mean, there's the APAC, there are national and state uh, powerhouses that are centralized powers helping the Jewish community. However, when we saw anti-Semitism, like we were saying, in our neighborhood, in our municipality, in our classrooms, um, at work, really like in our communities, nobody was really showing up to advocate for our students, our Jewish students in the classrooms. And so in the marketplace of Jewish advocacy, there was a gap. There was no
Mm-hmm.
grassroots mobilization efforts that were really showing up for us where we were seeing anti-Semitism manifest. In fact, at the state and national level, especially during after October 7th, um, there was a lot of pro-Israel sentiment. I know it's deteriorated, but
Mm-hmm.
usually we were counting on like, politicians always siding with Israel. So we really needed advocates to show up for the children in schools that were feeling marginalized or in our municipalities really close. So we just started. I mean, I think that happened in Chicago with the Gaza resolution, and then we filed for the Chicago Jewish Alliance, not really understanding what we were filing for, just knowing that we needed some
Mm-hmm.
organization at a local level, and it was just exponential growth because it was so needed. I mean, mothers and fathers wanted to know what their students were being indoctrinated with in the classrooms
Right.
and so is that what you were seeing in Rhode Island too? Like,
Yeah, I also feel that we're filling a critical gap, and I really like thinking about it that way with grassroots organizations like ours, because I don't think that, those big legacy organizations, so to speak, like the ADLs and Jewish federations are doing enough. And I actually wanted to ask you what, your specific relationship has been like with your local Jewish federation. I'm not trying to call anyone
yeah.
out, but I just, our readership and our supporters know that we haven't always seen eye to eye with our local Jewish Federation, and I wish it wasn't that way. I want to be more unified. However, many of our supporters feel that they and other legacy groups haven't really stood up to real anti-Semitism. I know they say that they do, and they have the fancy PR campaigns and the influencers and the dinners, but when rubber meets the road, when there's an anti-Semitic incident on the street, in the classroom, I haven't seen them really take action. Like, case in point, at least here, we were the only city in the country where a PLO terrorist flag was flown on our city hall on what they call Nakba Day. And we were the only group to have any type of response to that, sending letters to the mayor and all of the local politicians, and also having an on-the-ground presence with our Israeli and American flags. And similar to what you just said when you were um, protesting against the Gaza resolution, it was like a small group of us and then a sea of keffiyehs, but doing something is better than nothing. So I just find it hypocritical that some of these groups can say they're standing up to anti-Semitism, but then when literally a terrorist flag is waved, they're nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
So,
I've thought about this a lot. I don't because I do think, so let me back up. I believe that a lot of these centralized organizations, these legacy organizations, were built for a different era of different anti-Semitism. So just the makeup of how they're formed is different. They are built for access, meaning like in Chicago, we have it's the JUF here. It's part of the United Fund. And they're entrenched in the same politics that had the virtue signaling for the Gaza resolution.
right.
So what used to work was access and power, meaning like I think that the
Hmm.
Jewish advocacy organizations figured if we can get in really close with the politics and different ecosystems, then we can influence it.
Right.
But unfortunately, those allies that we thought were that strategy would come to fruition, it did not. And in
Yeah.
fact, Jews were the first to be casted out, um, with those allies when it came to needing help, I think. So the makeup of them is like designed to fail in the reality of the political landscape today. It might have worked 50 years ago, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I I agree with that because I've seen like lists, for example, there's an anti-Semitic tracker on our local federation's website, and they won't name like Jewish Voice for Peace, for example, or PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation, which radicalized the man who murdered those two innocent Jewish couple that was there at the Jewish Museum in DC, if you remember
And that
that
was
from last
incubated here,
year.
by the way. That's
Oh, right. That
A
was
Chicago guy.
so was the
Yeah.
Chicago chapter. See? So they won't name those as anti-Semitic organizations, but they will like go with the kind of old school like KKK racial sort of anti-Semitism. I kind of feel like they're in that philosophy. So I do agree with you. I don't think they've shifted to really address this new style of anti-Semitism, which is obviously manifesting as anti-Zionism, also an alliance between jihadists, Marxist, very progressive liberals. And this isn't about like pointing fingers and blaming all of our problems on a political party. It's just illustrating that, if they are trying to please their maybe progressive donors or board members, and do things to kind of check a box, it's not going to actually address the needs on the ground, which is again why our grassroots organizations are so powerful. So I totally hear what you're saying. I'd also would love to learn more about kind of the Jewish community. What's it like there? Have you been partnering with any other ally groups, like Christian groups or others that are like true allies in Chicago for you?
Yeah, just to finish the last point too, like if anybody's thinking about Jewish advocacy and about getting involved on a grassroots level, I think it's really important. This is just a side note, not to focus on the failed Jewish institutions that exist, but just to start building. Because early on, there was so much frustration that we were putting towards the cavalry that never showed.
Right.
And when we stopped doing that and just started harnessing, creating our own cavalry, it was way more productive. And some of these legacy organizations actually came around.
That's
So I do have
beautiful.
a little faith that
Yeah.
hopefully. Um, but I'm sorry. The question was, what is the Jewish community like here in Chicago now?
Yes. And
Or
what allies have you found?
oh, and what allies have we found? Well, so the Chicago Jewish Alliance is called the Chicago Jewish Alliance, and I know Jewish is in the title, but what we really have found, like what our ethos is, and like what we really stand for, is Western values. It's this idea that Judeo-Christian values has allowed for, more freedoms for the individual than in any other system in the world. And Jews have flourished in it, like in the diaspora for thousands of years. I think we've done the best in America. And I think America has been so good to the Jewish people. And I think there's a lot of communities where that crystallizes for them,
Mm-hmm.
especially communities that have come from, like similar, whether it be political oppression or religious oppression. And I think there has been just an organic consolidation with some of these allies that we have seen in Chicago, at least. So what we have done is we've taken a different approach to allyship. We don't really talk about the civil rights movement and who marched with who. We're talking about today and today's political landscape, who is there and who can we rely on.
Mm-hmm.
We have a amazing coalition with the Hindus, the Assyrians. We actually tomorrow I'm taking a pastor out from a church that's in Illinois that has showed up pretty much every single event that we have done. So it's just really a coalition of people from multiple ethnicities, religion, that believe in Western values and that understand that Jews are maybe the tip of the spear. But really, what we're doing is we're holding the line for our value system, and,
Mm-hmm.
and and that's what I think has really helped us build this coalition pretty large. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, when you said Western values, I just wanted to go ding, ding, ding. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly it. And that's exactly why, RICI always talks about part of our mission is not just combating anti-Semitism and educating about Israel, but it is promoting those Judeo-Christian or Western values, whatever you want to call them, because that's really the foundation of everything, right? And if we take these things for granted, we could easily be overcome by tyranny or some other system. And it just seems like there's so many people that hate America, and I understand that, our country has problems and challenges, and things are not always fair, but we do have this beautiful democracy that is very much in line with the values in Israel as well. And I think it's so important. And what you're saying also speaks to me personally as a first generation American too, because my parents immigrated from the Soviet Union, from Russia and Belarus, respectively, and they also really understand those American values. And I don't know if it's that like some American diaspora Jews just take it for granted, or I don't know where this comes from, but I definitely see, some of those groups being more naturally aligned with wanting to uphold the Western values. And then like you said, we're the Jews, right? They maybe attack us first, but we're holding the line, right? It's like after the Sunday people, they come, or after the Saturday people, they come for the Sunday people, right? It's like that classic
It's
line.
like a symptom. Like I think
Hmm.
Jew hate is just a symptom of the vitals of the actual society. Like I think when things are going good, it's okay for the Jews. It's not, I
Hmm.
mean, it's never like perfect, but
Yeah.
it just shows the illness of whether it be culture or wherever it is, because it just, yeah. So and I think
Exactly.
that, yeah.
And I also like that you're using the term Jew hatred. We also, as an organization, have been turning to that term just because it feels like anti-Semitism goes over people's head and is so antiquated. And people do need to see that, anti-Zionism is hatred of the Jewish state. So that is a form of Jew hatred, right? And we got to call it what it is. So, can you tell us a recent win that you've had with CJA?
Yeah, this is totally a story of if you build it, they will come, because there's so many wins. So, I mean, I'll give you my favorite example, because it just seemed like such a uphill battle that we didn't know what was going to happen, and it was an actual happy ending. One of the things that really disturbs me the most is when children are involved in this indoctrination,
Hmm.
because it's one thing as an adult to experience hatred, to understand it contextually, even hatred. Like it's hard to understand it, but you can understand the psyche of someone and you understand this holistically. when you're a child, you really don't. And when you're a parent and you put your child into school, you're really hoping that these people are not telling them what to think, but teaching them how to think. And one thing that just comes to mind, and I won't do any specifics because I don't know where that factors in legally. But one example of this, and there are countless of this. This is just one teacher. In Illinois, you have to teach about the Holocaust. It's a law.
Hmm.
And a lot of high schools do. They teach Elie Wiesel's The Night. They use that as the curriculum. One of the teachers in our community was taking the book Night because she has to by law teach the
Hmm.
Holocaust. But the actual assignment was to read the book Night. Not even read the book. There were excerpts, but read these excerpts from the book Night and make it allegoric to the Palestinian conflict or to the Northern Ireland conflict. I don't know why she threw
Oof.
that in there as well. And she was a tenured teacher and she was the head of the English department of a high school here.
Hmm.
And I guess this is a good example because it shows the power of grassroots advocacy. We unearth the story. This is basically what we do. We find out, we vet the information, make sure that it's legitimate. We actually got our hands on the curriculum. And then we're able to tell that story to the community. And by explaining to the community what's happening in the classroom, we were able to leverage the parents to come to those school board meetings. And we were pretty relentless. We were there every week. And they actually did get rid of the teacher. We
Wow.
actually found her at AMP conferences, usually, and other like organizations using her um, occupation in other extracurriculars that were ideologically just terrible. And so we were able to remove her from the classroom. And to me, that is such a big win because this is somebody who is indoctrinating our children, and that's something that takes a lot of deprogramming once they've been
Wow.
programmed. Yeah.
That is such a
So
huge win. I mean, and imagine, right? Like you prevented now hundreds, if not thousands of students from potentially being indoctrinated if she just continued in her position and nobody knew or people knew and didn't take action. That's wow. That's incredible. Can you tell us maybe some of the main like obstacles or challenges that you guys are currently facing?
yeah. So I think what happens when you get into Jewish advocacy is, well, a couple things. The first thing where we were able to mitigate one of our big problems was how do you stay grassroots and altruistic to the mission without, like we all know, you need to always raise money. You need to raise money
Hmm.
in advocacy. Anytime you're not actually for profit, you need to raise money to keep the mechanism going. And I think early on we had some issues because we had some big donors who had some big checks, but big opinions or wanted to see certain things. And
Hmm.
it didn't necessarily go with the mission and ethos of what we were working on at the time. And
Sure.
so we had this existential qualm where it was like, how are we going to be able to do this moving forward where we could not be beholden to one institution or one donor? And what we did is we developed a way to democratize how we make money. So we have over 200 members now that give us monthly dues, and we do almost like how like for-profit companies go in for like in front of their board. We do
Hmm.
these monthly or bi-monthly meetings where we talk to our members and we get some feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that that actually was a solution to one of our largest problems, which was how do we sustain altruism? How can we, because we don't care about political party. If Trump does something good for the Jews, we'll say it. If someone on the left does something for the good for the Jews, we say
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And so we put the Jewish people before our own brand, which is really not good when you're trying to raise money unless you figured out a way to democratize it and people know that you have a fiduciary duty to the Jewish community first before your own company, even Chicago Jewish Alliance. And I think that all kind of took fruition a couple months ago, and that has solved our biggest problem of how do we raise money and still stay true to the mission no matter what.
That is amazing. That is a great. great thing to do anyways, just to get feedback from the people that you're claiming to represent or support. But I could totally see that being beneficial, and I'm really just proud to see all the great things that you are doing. I know I'm here in Rhode Island, but from afar, I read the emails, I see the progress that you guys are making and your real efforts to really serve your community. And
It's
I
so
think it shows.
reciprocal, by the way.
Thank you.
Everybody in
Thank you so
Chicago
much.
just sees what's going on in Rhode Island, and it's just truly amazing because you are a smaller market, and yet you've been able to mobilize and do produce so much material and get, so it's very
Thank
reciprocal.
you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think, obviously there's some key advantages and disadvantages. One for you being that you just have a bigger market. You have more Jewish people in your area. You also have more, like we talked about, those pro-American groups that are more maybe sympathetic to this cause. Whereas we have a very small Jewish community here. And then within that community, there's the politics, of course, and there's just a lot of very anti-Israel, anti-Zionist Jews. Um,
Well,
in
can
Rhode
I ask you, how do you, as an organization and as an individual, deal with the as a Jews? Like, how do you deal with it emotionally? How do you deal with
Island?
it even with your advocacy?
Yes, that's such a interesting question. And just to explain for people who don't know what that term is, as a Jew, I think what you're referring to is some Jewish people, right, saying their opinion about Israel or what's going on in the Middle East, and kind of claiming to speak for all of Jewish people and represent the whole Jewish community, which is not right and not fair. But usually they're saying that in the context of an anti-Zionist remark. Um, and so it's hard, I guess. I know that going back to like Torah values, it's telling you that you have to like love your fellow Jew. So I always try to be like kind and polite. There are some of those Jews even within like the Jewish young professional group that I'm a part of here in Rhode Island. I try to always keep it friendly, but I also keep a healthy distance. Like I personally wouldn't and I wouldn't feel comfortable inviting someone like that into my home, but I'm okay, being at an event with them. Um, I just honestly, I just kind of go back to like I agree to disagree. Like, I politely disagree with you and here's why, and I'm not really trying to get into a debate with them. Um, and then I'm also trying to warn non-Jews to not take that one Jewish opinion so seriously and give it so much weight. But what about you? Maybe you have a better strategy.
No, definitely I don't. That's why I asked. I think we're all trying to deal with it on so many levels. In Illinois, we just had a Jewish mayor. He's half Jewish of a municipality here who has been really aggressive against Israel. And I think like what's really hard for me is like people call these people capos, and I think capos were dealing with like existential crises where, they could have been killed and they were just trying to do something selfish in a really existential crisis. And then to see, I mean, from California to New York to here, these Jewish politicians subvert the Jewish interest and their own people's interest for just power. It's really hard for me to digest. I mean, I'm really trying to be better.
Yeah. I guess I know it sounds like a cop out, but I feel like everything comes back to education. If you feel like there is an opening with somebody like that to maybe drop one little fact or one little article, and it's not attacking them personally, but like I heard from this expert that X, Y, and Z, and just see how
Yeah.
they react, and then obviously we can tell if it's a closed door or maybe if there's some hope with that individual and their line of thinking, but it is really hard. So I'm dying to ask you about American Jewish Alliance. You're also the president and co-founder of this newly formed American Jewish Alliance. I've just I want to be filled in on what's going on because I know I was sort of involved in some of those initial rumblings, and we have a mutual colleague, Dr. Charles Jacobs too, who has been a big part of this, but how did this idea of creating American Jewish Alliance even start? How did you found it? How are you guys doing now? I mean, I've seen all these logos explode and all these groups, so tell us everything.
Yeah. So the American Jewish Alliance is really just trying to replicate what we did in Chicago, which is very exciting for us. So we're launching now. So we're still in the process of launching our website. By the time this podcast is live, we'll be up and running at
Hey.
jewishalliance.com. But essentially, what we're trying to do is solve the problem of the inadequacies of what we were talking about before with centralized powers. We're not so decentralized, so we do have the American Jewish Alliance is developing curriculum, developing resources that we can put towards individuals like or organizations like RICI, so we can get energy and ammunition to the folks that are putting the energy on the front lines doing the advocacy. And we've realized every ecosystem is very different where people are, they like Rhode Island is smaller than Chicago, like we were saying. New York's bigger than Chicago. So every single ecosystem has its own way of kind of
Hmm.
punching back. But what we really want to do is we want to connect all of these Jewish advocacy organizations together under one umbrella of the American Jewish Alliance so that we can leverage these resources for each other. Dr. Charles Jacobs is the executive director of our board, and he's really the intellectual backbone of what we're creating.
Hmm.
And American Jewish Alliance is going to be basically think of it as customer service for all the different alliances that we open up around the country. We're going to make sure that we get them set up, that we get them really a turnkey process from like, I want to start doing Jewish advocacy. We will show them how to raise money. We will get them attorneys. We'll really bolster them with all the resources that they're going to need to combat anti-Semitism in their community. And we launched Colorado, and it's been going great. So we're going to be
Wow.
kind of turning the faucet on and opening it up to a lot of other chapters very, very soon. So it's very
Wow.
exciting. Yeah.
This is amazing. This sounds like a dream because, I don't think that we should be operating in silos. All of us, grassroots groups, right? We're stronger together when we can share these resources and ideas and people. And so I'm very, very excited to see where this movement goes. You are definitely at the forefront of it, which is like a lot of responsibility as well. Like how do you feel about being the leader, just like you personally, for such an organization?
I hate it. Like I hate being in front of lights. I hate all, but I love the ROI of helping people is what drives me. We get emails, we get calls all the time. I actually think people that hate the limelight are probably okay to lead, though. Actually, because I really have to. Even public speaking was very hard for me early on.
Hmm.
Like it really was, and it was for other people. They were very organic. They went up and they spoke, and I have to speak in front of the news all the time, and it still stresses me out. But when things become so existential to your people and to society and to your way of life, you don't there's no luxury of deciding whether or not I'm going to do this. When our grandparents ran to the forest, they didn't want to. They I'm sure like they had way better lives than eating squirrels in the forest, but it's the times choose the man, not the other way around.
Hmm.
And now that I'm in it and that I have developed some of these calluses towards the media or whatever I have to do, um, it's truly the most fulfilling work. And it gives me so much purpose that um, I have more optimism for the Jewish people now more than ever, and people find
Wow.
that crazy, but I really do. I've seen so much positivity after such a horrendous after October 7th. If there's any silver lining, there is a community that has come together, Jews, non-Jews, that is beautiful. And I think there's a reason why we've been around for 3,000 years and going strong, and we'll continue to.
Yes. And those moments of like Judean pride are very, very, very important. And I like to say Judean pride just to emphasize that Jews are from Judea in case anybody forgot. But I love what you said, and I resonate so much because I also don't like being in the limelight and I don't really like being in front of cameras. But I like the work and the meaning behind it and the impact. So we definitely share that in common. But you are doing a fantastic job so far. But how are you able to balance, obviously running CJA and then all the stuff going on with American Jewish Alliance and the different branches? Like, what's a typical day look like for you?
Well, so I own a healthcare company, right? So I'm building a healthcare company that it's not just local. We just opened up a practice in Maryland, and so I would say like my day is it's a frenetic lifestyle. It could be healthcare related or it can be nonprofit related. But for people that sounds crazy and chaotic. For a kid who grew up with ADHD, I think 2026 is actually very convenient because I can throw, I really can. Like I enjoy solving problems as an entrepreneur, and I've always been an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And I think even though it's Jewish advocacy, one thing's Jewish advocacy, one thing's healthcare, it's really about problem solving. And I just love it. I really do. I love building things. I like building systems, and both in healthcare and in advocacy, we're helping people. And
Hmm.
so that really just drives me. I also don't have a wife or kids, so that gives me a little bit extra time to do a little extra work.
Right? That totally makes sense. And just you already know this, and I know we're going to be talking soon, but Ricky obviously wants to be involved with American Jewish Alliance because we're very much of like mind. So, I can't wait for you guys to get over to our neck of the woods very soon. I know you're already in New York, but would I can't wait for that all to happen. I did want to ask you too, like if you had an unlimited budget, whether it's for CJA or American Jewish Alliance, like is there a dream project or initiative that you wish you could work on in this pro-Israel advocacy world?
Mm, that's such a good question. I have so many delusions of grandeur, but I haven't really thought about specifically in the Jewish advocacy space because I don't know if it's an economic issue. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I think my like idea or if I could see anything, I think that there's two things that I would really like to see, I guess. I think that education in this country has gotten so sanitized. Like, for example, when we talk about these like legacy organizations, I still feel like they're fighting the Nazi past, these ghosts of like Nazi past.
Hmm.
And with technology and with society and with culture, we don't move linear anymore. It's
Linearly, yeah, linearly.
linearly, and we don't, and so it's a like exponential growth with technology, and we also are in our own silos. So like it used to be like Rolling Stone top 100, everybody would know it's like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Now my favorite group can be something that you've never heard of and vice
Hmm.
versa. So I really would like as a project, I guess, would be some way to get the right historical narrative to the youth in a
Hmm.
way that like can penetrate TikTok and penetrate because I think there's this self-loathing of the West right now, and really it's the most beautiful thing ever. And what kills me is it's true. If you control the history of people, you can control the present. If people believe that America is the worst place ever, then they can be manipulated now. And I
Right.
just really, really wish that there was like some way to penetrate like the education system so that people can understand that America and the West has made more free people than ever, and that they're living in one of the most luxurious times in human history. Um, So yeah, so something that can like deprogram people and
I hear that.
reprogram to let them know how beautiful it is to
I
be at
hear
this
that.
time.
And maybe that's something that we can work on together with American Jewish Alliance, whether that's like, just something that came to mind just because I was on a call the other day with Camera on Campus is just,
Mm.
they have amazing fellows, right, at universities and colleges around the country. So maybe it's like mobilizing them to do a TikTok dance with some history or whatever it is going to take to like get to the youth. And, we get some big donors putting money behind it, or maybe we need like a pro-Israel ambassador that goes and speaks at, some of the biggest high schools. I don't know what the answer is or like how it should manifest, but I feel like we need to start exploring those options more as a
Bec-
movement.
Because they know that they champion liberalism and that's
Hmm.
important value. But then when you look at like the geopolitical landscape, well, what societies are actually championing those values that you're speaking of when it comes to like homosexuals, for example, or women's rights, or all of these like values that we see the youth expose? It's just this cognitive dissonance when they actually match it up with culture and
Hmm.
society. And something about that kills me. So if, I don't know if it's a money issue, if it's a TikTok dance issue, or what it is, but I would love to work on that with you guys and see what
Yeah,
little
like
impact we can make.
when you said that, I immediately thought of like the Queers for Palestine movement and,
Right.
all
Like,
of those funny like interviews that we've seen with like Zach Sage and others who ask them like, do you know where in the Middle East, you can be like legally gay and they have no idea that you can in Israel, for example, and that you can't in all of the surrounding Arab countries. Like even just those like absurd things, like I don't know, maybe there's a way to capture like, I don't know, an ex-Queers for Palestine person that like it sounds really sad, but like honestly that checks some of those DEI boxes so that people will listen.
yeah,
I feel like we kind of have to use the same tactics that the progressives are using, like the identity politics, and maybe use that in our favor. Because it seems, anyways, from my perspective, that people are kind of like tuning out like the Jewish voices and they're just calling us white colonizers and you're just a victim, so I'm just not going to listen and I'm going to see everything through that lens.
right.
Versus the other identities being the ones to carry the message. So I think we can brainstorm and I think we can work on that together.
That sounds great. Yeah, and I also think part of that is to showing the pluralism of Zionism, like you're saying, like bringing those voices where they're like, no, I'm a gay Muslim, whatever, living there, and I can tell you, Tel
Hmm.
Aviv's great, and I'm, you know what I mean, or whatever it is, because if they really do champion these values, then they should be championing the societies that created those value systems.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
No, 100%. I think we need to get them on a panel somehow and do like some type of tour. So we're gonna work on it and make it happen.
sounds
But you
good,
said
girl.
there was a second thing that came to mind. So the first was getting these accurate historical narratives to the youth. But what was your second one?
So the second one is completely different with the other side is I wish that some of I guess we'll just call them boomers. That's like intellectually lazy, but some older Jews or people that I know still I guess I don't know if it's like a money thing or whatever, but for them, I would like them to understand the political realities of today. Like when I
Mm-hmm.
get phone calls from students that can't go to class, it's not because this alt-right, white nationalist is blocking them. It's because of some fermentation in the, DSA movement, right? And so what I would really love is for people, because I had to humble myself. I actually was going across different political leanings, but
Mm-hmm.
the political parties are irrelevant. I think if you have a value system, then it doesn't matter if there's an R or a D there. You need to address the problem as it is. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of older Jews refuse to look at the complexities that have manifested, not just on the right, which I agree there is the woke right, but really the left has, I was having a conversation with someone the other day that the Democratic Party is anti-Semitic, and there are anti-Semitic people in the Republican Party, and that to me is the difference
Yes.
in many ways. And I know that there are more centrist people, and okay, but like the DSA that we're going up against in Chicago, or the teachers union, or all of these institutions are anti-America, anti-Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
and like we were saying, fomenting the hate that drove someone all the way to Washington, D.C. to murder a Jewish couple, one Jewish, and so I wish we can just shake them, or like share from that movie, just like snap out of it, because we
Yeah.
have to also deprogram what are the complexities and realities that we're fighting on the ground today.
100%, 100%. I also want to ask you more about before we started the podcast, you were saying something that Chicago has the highest population of people that identify as Palestinian outside of Gaza. So, can you tell us more about what that's like? Because that's the exact opposite here in Rhode Island. We have a very small Muslim community, and I'm not sure how many of them honestly identify as Palestinian. And another reason I say that is because again, when we had that PLO terrorist flag, we call it what it is. It's the PLO terrorist flag, not the Palestinian flag, was raised over our city hall. Nate Friedman, who's an independent journalist,
Love
exposed
him.
that many of those people were paid agitators not from Rhode Island. So since we kind of have opposite scenarios, like what has that been like in terms of, on the ground, you're going to protest, whether it's at City Hall or at, a meeting or some type of event. What's like what does that tension look like? And also, have you found allies from that community? What's the communication like between, CJA and your allies and this group?
Oh, that's a great question. So 300,000 Jews, I think, live in the Chicagoland area, and I think about 300,000 Palestinian people that identify with the Palestine, which is a huge number.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bigger than New York. It's the biggest in the country, I'm pretty sure. And they just opened up Little Palestine here in a suburb with huge signs, and it's now an attraction that they're trying to
Mm.
build. Um, how do we interface with them, or how does that kind of manifest?
Hmm.
Um, well, okay, in a couple different ways. Politically in Chicago, our mayor wears a keffiyeh, CARE, which is kind of the lobbyist organization for
Hmm.
them here, is pretty much wherever we are, they are. Um, it's an ideological battle
Hmm.
because these people that identify as Palestinian might not even, from what our definition of Palestinian is, might not even. So we believe that they claim that identity ideologically, which makes it even harder combating it
Hmm.
here. I mean, really, it's very hard. In Chicago, our phone is off the hook with anti-Semitic issues all the time. There's always conflations between occupiers, Jewish occupiers, and what's happening, like with they had a Palestinian film festival, for example, here in Chicago, and there was just a lot of terrible media. They wrote a lot of terrible things,
Hmm.
and what really kills me is like I don't think people realize, like they say baby killer and all these terrible, aspersions onto Jewish people, as if we don't have empathy, as if we don't see the same videos of little children starving, and that doesn't kill us
Hmm.
too, you know? But what gets lost here, and the cognitive dissonance here, is like, if you really do care about the Palestinian people and you really do care about that malnourished kid, then you would want to liberate them from a terrorist organization that subjects their own people to the worst of the worst.
Hmm.
Um, and so we've met some Christian Palestinians who say that they're from, where they've come to our events, and it's been very cordial. But Muslim Palestinians, I don't think we've really developed any strong relationships with them, and we would love to. I mean, I truly believe, and again, this might just be a value that we share of part of the West, is that civil discourse
Hmm.
is so beautiful, because really the best ideas should percolate to the top when you're able to talk to someone and really just battle the ideas and not like hominins. And we haven't been able to really find that counter. We've solicited to a lot of people asking CARE or
Hmm.
individuals part of the Palestinian community if they would come on to like a webinar and talk, and we have yet to be taken up on that. So it's mixed, I mean, like sometimes it's very challenging, having a Palestinian contingent, and obviously there's animosity towards Zionists and a Zionist
Hmm.
organization. Um, but I would say a lot of our battle is not just them, it's really with the so-called people that don't have a dog in this fight, but that choose to virtue signal for political
Yes.
convenience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, kudos to you for, reaching out and trying to expand the dialogue, even if it isn't always received. I think there's just, I feel like that's one of the pillars of community is just making that invitation, even if somebody doesn't
We we
respond or says
we
no.
in, we invited that teacher who was let go,
Hmm.
who like was posting about us saying all these things, and we invited her onto our podcast because we just wanted to be able to talk, give her our perspective, why we felt this way,
Hmm.
and nothing. So she was able to talk about us, but not with us.
Oh,
And so we'll extend that invitation to anybody. We truly believe that if people can talk reasonably, they can meet somewhere in the middle, hopefully.
yes. And speaking about your podcast, where can people find that?
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and type in Chicago Jewish Alliance, you'll see Jew and Stew, and we basically just and we're going to invite you on there as well. But we
Thank you.
focus on individuals that are on the front line of advocacy. It doesn't have to be Jewish; it could be Christian, Hindu, Assyrians are on the podcast. So we just like to focus on people who are on the front lines of advocacy.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Is there another thing that you wish people would know about pro-Israel activism or grassroots advocacy, or just something that you wish I asked you?
JewishAlliance.com, unapologetic Zionism is coming to a city near you. And no, I think everything that you guys have done in Rhode Island is just so amazing. The whole nation knows about it, probably beyond. And we're very excited to work with you. And we're very excited to reach out and talk more about the American Jewish Alliance with Ricky.
Thank you. I'm very excited about, our continued collaboration, and people have already seen, us co-sponsoring webinars, but please be on the lookout on Ricky's website, on CJA's website. We have more webinars coming in the pipeline. I know, there's one coming up on anti-Semitism in the law. And, we're constantly trying to get new voices and speakers and education out there. And we're in different states, but we can still use the interwebs to connect. And I would, hopefully love to meet you in person someday. We'll have to bring you out to Rhode Island, and have you meet our group. And I just, again, applaud you for everything that you're doing and excited to be in this fight with you.
Likewise, Maria. And like you said, Maria, it's like you said, it's different battles, same army. So we're just getting organized now. It's about time.
Amazing. So AmericanJewishAlliance.com, right? Oh, just
JewishAlliance.com.
JewishAlliance.com. Okay, so
Yeah,
JewishAlliance.com. But I know you guys have an Instagram, and that is American Jewish Alliance. So please follow them also on Instagram and all the platforms. And I'm excited to stay in touch with you, Danny. Thanks again. Thank you.
likewise. Thank you.